Aloha, I'm Paul Normann. I'm the Executive Director of Neighborhood Place at Puna. And today I just want to talk a little bit about homelessness and housing, and specifically about the Housing First model, which you may have heard of. And when it comes to addressing homelessness, especially homelessness for families with children, the solution really is quite simple, right? If you want to end homelessness, you house people. I mean, that's it, right? The solution to homelessness is housing people. You cannot end homelessness by giving them, food on the streets, hygiene products, cast off codes, all kinds of wonderful things for people who are suffering hardship. But that does not move us towards ending homelessness or reducing homelessness. The one thing that will end homelessness is housing people. And so while the solution is very simple, which I really like, because Neighborhood Place at Puna works with a lot of complicated issues. We work with families that struggle with a lot of issues, but homelessness and housing, in one sense, the solution is straightforward. And in the United States and elsewhere in the world, the model that is being used right now to address homelessness is called Housing First. And it's built really on this very fundamental idea that in order to be successful, to successfully transition out of homelessness, to get a job, to be successful in life, to address medical issues, address mental health issues, to address substance abuse issues, to make sure your kids are in school and stable. All of those issues are built on a foundation of stable housing, and stable housing allows you to do those things. Because when you're not housed, when you are on the street or homeless or whatever you're doing, all those things are harder. So if you've never experienced homelessness, I mean, that's wonderful, and you're very fortunate. But if you have, being displaced, not having an address. Where do they send the bill? Where do they send checks? Right? How do they reach you? Right? Not having an address, not having a home is a barrier to being employed. It's a barrier to being successful. And then there's just the stress and trauma of not having any structure or stability in your life, right? So if you have a substance abuse issue or a mental health issue, and for sure not every homeless person does, but if that's your thing and you're living in an unstable situation, of course you're going to be more triggered for those activities, right? We know that people who are stably housed are more successful at addressing health issues. We know that they're healthier overall, that their health outcomes are better if they're stable housed. And we know that substance treatment programs, however you want to call them, substance treatment programs, are more successful for families who are stably housed, for individuals who are stably housed. And we know that children who are stably housed are going to be more successful in school. I mean, there's data on this. I'm not just making this up. We know this. We know it both from a data sense, from research, but we also know it in our hearts, right? We intuit this. If your child is not sleeping well, is not able to not have the routine that's provided by having a stable house, they're just not going to succeed well in school because their mind is on other things. That's assuming they get to school. And there are a lot of supports in there for homeless children to make sure homeless children can access school. But the best thing we can do to help children be successful, to give them the opportunity to have a full education, is make sure that they're housed. So, when we talk about housing first, we're not talking about housing only. So of course, there are people there are challenges and barriers for many folks when they become housed. And so housing first. So once you get them housed into stable long-term housing, then you need to offer them different services and support, and have us help them create a support network around them. We're not mandating these services. These are adults. They are being offered to them. So this isn't a paternalistic model. But the services are there, the supports are there to help them be successful. And we all know we don't want to be forced to do things that some of us are just naturally resistant when someone says, you've got to do this, right? So we know also, and we know through our own experience and through research, that individuals and families who choose to participate in programs and services are just going to be more successful, right? So if you choose to participate in a substance abuse support program, you're going to be more successful than if you're told you have to, right? The things that you're passionate about, that you choose for yourself, you're going to be more successful in. And so that, the housing first approach is to give them that foundation of housing and do it in a way that is helping them see their lives as housed people. So for the chronic homeless, right? If you, me, you, whatever, we have a job, something happened, we fall into homelessness and we're very quickly rehoused, we might just need a little bit of help. But somebody who's been homeless for a while, they might need to be reminded that there's more that they can do in life. And so the housing first model uses this approach that we are empowering individuals. So when we talk about housing families and children, because that's Neighborhood Place of Puna, we're all about families and children. That doesn't mean that individuals shouldn't get housed, they should. But our focus is families and our focus is children, because we know, especially with young children, that the negative impacts from homelessness, from instability, are long-term for our society and expensive. It's phenomenally expensive to help someone who's home, right? To keep someone homeless, right? Through shelter services or whatever. That's really expensive. It's much more affordable to get them into housing and then support them and being successful. And that's more so for children, because there are long-term consequences in how their brain develops, in how they do in school, and then how they're going to do once they get out of school. So super important for children. And as I've said many, many, many times on this vlog, that for our shelter, the majority of children in our shelter are under the age of 5. So this is super vulnerable time for children. Their brain is, the architecture of their brain is being constructed, and it's going to shape the way they see the world, they process the world, they think about the world, they react to the world. So super important that we get them into housing and we support them in housing so that the children can thrive, so that the family can thrive. So that those children have a chance of escaping poverty, because we don't want the children to learn to be successful at surviving in homelessness and poverty, right? That's not, you need it if you're there, but that's not a skill set we want. We want them to learn how to thrive as successful and productive members of our society with hope and joy and opportunity. And right now, here in Hawaii, hard to house families. There's just not a lot of housing. A lot of housing is out of reach. And quite honestly, there are a lot of landlords who aren't willing to work with the families we serve who aren't willing to help families. So part of Housing First involves changing our thinking around homelessness and changing our thinking around housing. And, as a society, if we want to end family homelessness, if we want to end homelessness, then we need to recognize that we need to find a way to make sure that everyone has access to housing. We have to make sure that every child has a stable home in which to grow and thrive. And it can seem impossible, but that's our mind, right? That's the way we conceive the world. We can change that. So that's my little spiel on Housing First. Simple solution: homelessness, house people. Implementing it, more challenging, but it's doable. And, the goal here is to make sure that children have the opportunity to grow up and to be raised in a nurturing, stable, safe home. That's what we should want for every child. And that's what Neighborhood Place of Puna works to achieve in our community and elsewhere. So check out our website, neighborhoodplaceofpuna.org. See what we do. If you want to support us, great. If you have another nonprofit that you support, great. Because I believe that, together we can end family homelessness. And together, working together, shared vision that we can create communities and societies in which every child grows up in a safe, stable, and nurturing home. Aloha, and have a wonderful day.